My name is Jaya Padmanabhan. 24 out of every million people may know who I am on this planet. That number is based on the factoid that there are 172,000 readers of the magazine that I edit, India Currents. So I'm done with my plug now. So I was justifiably surprised to be asked to give the speech today. And I feel incredibly honored to stand before you. I always believed that there were rules to these things, but thank you, Dr. Khoury. Rule bender. I'd like to borrow a line from the movie, The Second Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, one of the most extravagantly boring movies ever made, despite some serious aging good looks. In the movie, Maggie Smith tells Dev Patel, "I'm not here to give advice. I'm here to share opinions." So here they are, my opinions. 20 years ago, I took a class on computational theory, and I loved it. I was fascinated by the idea of unsolvable problems and the intractable nature of mathematical dilemmas. 20 years ago, I listened to Professor Sami Khoury talking about genetic algorithms. And I saw the beautiful complexity of heuristic search methodology. 20 years ago, I was one among you, sitting on a chair listening to a speech given by I don't know who, and wondering where I would be 20 years from graduation, and whether I would be applying what I learned in the classrooms. I got my first job based on my passion for genetic algorithms and NP-complete problems. And I was excited then, as you probably are today. Yet, 20 years later, I stand before you as a writer. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I'm going to be talking to you about. Life choices and algorithms. Graduates, faculty, parents, congratulations. And graduates, class of 2015, your story is still to be written, but some of the most interesting chapters are done. And whether you're riding the narrow road to the deep north, or the road less traveled, or the road to utopia, you are going to be the one setting the line and page breaks now, and deciding on the word count and the plot twists. So keep your eye out. Many of you will be heading out to join startups, large and small enterprises. In a few years, some of you will start your own companies. And then one or two, maybe a handful of you will be listed on the Forbes 500. Your salary and benefits will allow you to buy those Teslas and $3,000 Louis Vuitton handbags. And you will take your beautiful families on vacations to Aruba. And you will dine at restaurants and order dishes described as hand-cut silken cheese from brown cows fed on organic hay and artistically stimulated into reduced green spinach with a splash of satin cream. That's nothing other than what your grandmother once made you that she calls palak paneer. But that's what your money will get you. A seat at the table and a beautiful description. And a Louis Vuitton bag. Yes, I'm a writer. I'm one of those who gave it up, took that fork in the road that brought me little money and about 24 out of a million people worth of recognition. I'm what you might call a culture writer. I write about identity and being an American from India. I write about belonging and integration and alienation and acculturation. Writing to me is not much different from coding. It's merely more refined and less defined. I like to think of writing like it's a set of codes and trees and data structures that I need to make sense of. So I apply what I was taught in this university, in this department, to my words. I give it a pattern. I configure my paragraphs so that my story is directly affected by the word-to-sentence scripting that goes into it. So why become a writer? I'd like to start by telling a small story. When one of my twins was 7 years old, she and her friend Mary were standing in line at recess. They had just come out of a history class. Mary, without much preamble, turned to my daughter and explained it. If you had been born 200 years ago, you would have been my slave, she said. At 7, my daughter couldn't make sense of that remark, so she came home and asked me if what she'd heard was true. I could see on my daughter's face that she desperately wanted me to refute what she had heard. All of a sudden, she was forced into this realization that there were things beyond her control that had tremendous significance. It was an inflection point in her life and one of the gravest moments in mine. For there was no perfect answer to that question. If I had been born 200 years ago, would I have been a slave? Yes was not entirely right, and no seemed like a dissociation from the Black experience. And I wanted my daughter to feel the empathy, the utter devastation of slavery. I wanted her not to want to be white, something other than she was in today's multicolored world. I understood that this was too much for her to grasp, so I wanted to record that moment for later. There were many such moments in the years that followed. It became an increasingly complex problem that I grappled with. I found that I had a crazy compulsion to write and then to read what I had written to make sense of these important moments. If I had had to write an algorithm at age 30 that could deterministically predict what I would be doing for the rest of my life, it would have been a pretty straightforward one. I was headed to become a software engineer, and then on to manager, then director, maybe join a startup, start a company. At age 40, however, those variables began to shift, and the predictions began to fluctuate. And I think that is the irrationality of living. More and more, I began to read and think about what identity really meant. For many, it's their job. For others, it's fame, friends, fortune, Facebook. And for others, it's keeping our spirits alive within our skins. For me, it's feeling that connection. I feel it when I listen to a beautiful rhythm played by a subway drummer wearing dark glasses. I feel it when I read a sentence that is textured into such beauty that I must pause to reflect. I felt it when I sat on a staircase and watched my 2-year-old twins negotiate the stairs towards me. I feel it when I read about the Salem March, the Dundee March, and I wonder what would keep me down. I feel it when ordinary people do extraordinary things. And I feel it when my daughters ask me what the meaning of color really is. The Harlem writer James Baldwin once remarked, "Insofar as you think you are white, you are irrelevant." In today's context, I'd like to state that as insofar as you think of the color of skin, you are irrelevant. Events in the past few months have brought home once more that racism is the discoloration of minds and has nothing to do with skin color and more to do with inherited attitudes. And that is what I want to convey to my readers and to my children, and that is why I write. The little 7-year-old Mary was trying to make sense of a history lesson. And to her, the differentiating factor was the color of skin. To my darker-hued children, color didn't have much meaning till they encountered that life lesson. To me, it seemed to make the moment especially important. So I arrived at a point in my life when I hungered for a new awareness. I began to write and publish, and I grew as a writer, and I experienced the headiness that comes from bringing to the world a truth, even if it's an inconvenient one. Often, I got it wrong, but when it was right, it was beautiful. I loved what I did in my 20s and my 30s, but I love what I do today even more. And I never forget that I'm here at this juncture of my life because I took classes in BASIC and Pascal. I've been advising my daughter, who wants to be a human rights lawyer, that she must take coding classes just so that it can instruct her as a thinker. There are many similarities between writing and programming. Not the least is the analysis that must go into nonfiction writing and even fiction writing. Many of you in this audience may have experienced that aha moment when you crack the code to an algorithm, solve a problem that you think nobody else has. In my opinion, every code has been cracked, every problem has been solved. What we are innovating is a new set of problems and new solutions to those problems to keep those aha moments coming. It's no different with writing. I experience many aha moments when I write, only to realize a little later that it's been said. The plot has already been written, the title has already been taken. There's a famous saying that says, all great stories have already been written by the Greeks and by Shakespeare. So I just need to say what I want to say sooner or better or funnier. One of the biggest perks of my job is that I must read. I have always been somewhat of an avid, almost greedy reader. I don't have to find time for it anymore. I must read in order to survive as a writer. Though strangely, I've actually come across more writers who don't read than readers who don't write. My mother can testify to my obsessive reading habits, since she has caught me on more than one occasion reading what she calls a storybook, instead of preparing for that bio midterm or chemistry test in high school. She lives with me now, and she's been sporting that suspicious frown on her forehead since I told her that I was not merely reading a storybook, I was actually writing one. The challenge in the choices that we make is that whatever we do, we must think different, to borrow from Apple. How we do that, what we use to do that, or where we do that, is really not important. So, as you leave San Jose State University, my hope is that you look for and make those connections, feel the empathy of other experiences, and enter your cubicles and garages powered by those feelings. Be ready to be different, make a difference, and differentiate wisely, as I know you will. Thank you, and good luck.